Hi, I'm Blake Johnson, and I teach the oboe and English horn at RAW Music. I fell in love with the oboe when I was a freshman in high school. I've been playing the clarinet for 3 years, and my band director asked me if his wife, who had been my middle school band director and an oboe player herself, had ever asked me if I'd like to play the oboe. And of course, I had no idea what it was. So I went home and I probably typed oboe into YouTube, and luckily for me, what came up in the first few results was a video of Albrecht Meyer, who is the co-principal of the Berlin Philharmonic. And it's an interesting video because it's an old recording from a video session of him recording his CD of his own arrangements of Handel pieces. And his sound was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It was beautiful. His stage presence is dynamic. He was standing in the middle of an orchestra on a podium, and when he wasn't playing, he was conducting them. And he had this huge white sweater with a whale on it. And I thought, that's exactly what I want to be, the man in the middle of the orchestra with a whale sweater playing the oboe. And so when I finally got to play the oboe, I sounded nothing like him, more like a duck, but I knew that that was what I wanted to do. The best part of teaching music is the way in which no two students are the same. You can teach 10 students in a day and no 2 lessons will be the same. No 2 students will learn the same way. My favorite thing is to have to teach one concept 10 different ways, and suddenly you see their face change, you see their eyes light up, and you know that they've gotten it. And for me, that's why I teach, for that very moment. I get my students excited to come back to lessons by incorporating things they're interested in, movies, video games, any sort of music they like, and also by incorporating interesting things that are unique to the oboe, such as read-alone exercises, where we get to make fun little squawking sounds. Don't you want to do that every week? And also by always leaving them with something they have to work on over the week. I believe that our job as teachers is to teach our students to be their own teachers. So when they leave me for the week, they'll always have something to work on and figure out for themselves. When approaching the all-state music for this year, it's important in the first movement to take notice of the tempo. It's marked adagio, which is very slow, but perhaps not as slow as you think. I would recommend thinking of it in 8 or by counting the 8th note. And of course, the challenge when you do that is that you're very aware of how long the first note is and how long every long note after that is. For instance, the opening C ends up being 7 counts when you're counting the 8th note. So it can be tempting to think that all of the dynamic motion has to happen within that one note. But while the note is important, the motion should happen during the shorter notes. Always remember the rule that short notes lead to long notes. That isn't to say that the long notes aren't important. They form the basic melody that Handel wrote. The 16th notes are simply ornamental, ornamentation that Handel wrote in himself, and they lead from one long note to the next. Another important consideration in this excerpt, both in the first movement and the second, is the execution of trills. In Baroque music, always remember that trills start from the upper neighbor. So in the case of the second line, there's a trill on the A, begun on the B flat, the note above. And if you're not used to this type of music, playing Baroque music or executing trills from the note above, it can be tempting to shorten the note before the trill and place the upper neighbor slightly before the beat. So think of lengthening the note before. That is not to say to stretch it or to add time, but simply make sure that you're holding it for its full value and then lengthen the upper neighbor just a little bit. These suggestions go toward every long note and every trill in the piece, and I hope you find them useful. Happy practicing.